Jonathan, welcome to the show. I'm excited to have you on.
Hey, thanks so much for having me, Jason. Very grateful. Thank you.
Oh, stop. So I thought before we get into what we're going to talk about, what I do with every guest is I just like to, in case people are not too familiar with you who are listening, give yourself a little bit of background and kind of your journey and how you got to where you are today.
Okay, sure. So for those listening, after turning 40 and going through a divorce back in 2005, I found myself back out in the dating pool, and there was this thing called online dating, and
what's that?
And I thought it was really, and I was in an unhappy marriage, and I thought, oh, I can just simply plug in exactly what I want, and someone would magically appear. And I went out on a date, and great date, great gal, something wasn't right, and few days later, another date, great gal, great date, something wasn't right. And then again and again, again. And in 1 year, I had over 100 internet dates. And I realized the thing that wasn't right, the common denominator was me, was the issue. So I actually began doing personal development work, self-help work. The movie The Secret came out. And I go, wow, this resonates with me. I'm like, and I just really got into wanting to heal what was going on inside of me. But Jason, here's the thing. I was addicted to talking to women. I mean, sometimes I had 4 or 5 instant message conversations going with women. This is back when online dating wasn't used via swipe.
That's multitasking, by the way.
Yeah, exactly. And what was interesting was I was actually just making friends with women all across the country. I mean, I just wanted to hear their stories. And I was fascinated with hearing their divorce stories. And I'm lamenting my own divorce story. So I'm getting all that, validation for, how dysfunctional I was. And I'll get into that in a minute.
I love it.
But what was happening was a lot of women would reach out to me. Hey, Jonathan, I know we're just friends now. Could you help me fix my dating profile? Because it's just not working. I'm like, sure. So I gave them perspective on how to improve their photos, how to improve their essays, just from the guy's perspective. And sure enough, they'd make the changes. And then I'd get a phone call 3 weeks later. Jonathan, I met a guy online. Will you check out his profile and tell me what you think? I'm like, and they give me their password, and I'd look at the guy's profile. And I go, and I had this knack, like Jason, the FBI have profilers for serial killers?
Yes.
Well, I can profile serial daters, serial monogamous, nice guys, bad boys, and the guy looking for you. And literally my coaching practice was birthed. I actually, in 2009, I shifted from being in the insurance industry for over 20 years to actually becoming a coach, specifically helping women improve their online dating profiles and being recognized by guys. But that's morphed substantially since then.
Yeah.
And so, but that's what I do professionally. And there's a lot more to the story, which I know we'll get into.
Oh yeah. I mean, I got to tell you, I should send my younger brother to you. Talk about a serial dater. And what's the one common denominator? It's him.
Yeah. And be candid with you, I was a train wreck. I was do I have permission to curse or not?
Oh yeah, go nuts.
Okay. So I was a fucking train wreck. So here's what happened in my life. I was going through a contentious divorce. We can talk about that a little bit more. I had lost my $250,000 a year job. I got laid off.
Insurance.
And the market crash of 2008, I got wiped out financially. I mean, a 7-figure wipeout. I used to live in a $2 million home. It was so bad I had to move in with my mom and dad, and here I'm in my 40s. In a retirement community of all places. So I had hit rock bottom. I was doing drugs and alcohol. I was in the pit of despair. And when I said I realized the common denominator was me, I was in this stew of dysfunction in my life. And I was able to basically claw my way out. And again, my belief is personal development, self-help, and spiritual work is what got me out of the Jericho's pit, if you will.
Right.
And it's what I talk about frequently, but why I share that with your audience, and as a dating and relationship coach, what makes me unique is that this is the vast majority of men that the women are dating. Because going through a divorce is like an unraveling of the tapestry of your life.
Yeah.
And having to redefine and reestablish who you are as an individual when you've been commingled.
Right.
And then trying to do that while you're going through a contentious divorce, you're going through job change, going through loss of income, the embarrassment and shame of moving in with my mother and father. I have emotionally felt what so many men and women experience at midlife. And for those listening, my expertise is what I call, I'm a midlife dating coach, which means after baby making years and before retirement. 75% of the single population that's dating is divorced in that age bracket.
Right.
Now that's anecdotal. I don't have facts, but I mean, it seems pretty obvious, right? You know,
I think that makes sense. I think people would agree. Yeah.
Yeah. So now there's going to be some widowers in there and never married group in there, but for the most part, it's divorced. And so why that's so important and what you teach as well is the understanding that there's this need to reintegrate your own sovereignty, your own self-worth, self-confidence, self-esteem. I call it self-love. In fact, this journey that I've been on inspired me to write a book called What the Heck is Self-Love Anyway?
Right.
And it was because I spent time in the pit of despair, clawed my way out, began rebuilding myself, and then I suffered an even greater loss in my life. In the summer of 2018, I lost my 18-year-old son to an accident.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
Thank you. Most people, I'm sure anyone listening to this knows that if you're a parent, your greatest fear is something happening to your child.
Right.
And I experienced it all in a nanosecond on July 3rd when I got that devastating phone call. But it was the work I did in advance that didn't take me down that rabbit hole of suffering and even worse than what I experienced before, because I literally before was drugs and alcohol, went to bed wishing I didn't wake up, but I didn't experience this. And so it was because I worked with coaches like yourself and so many others that it shored up my sovereignty. It shored up I call it, this work is like a vaccination to emotional chaos.
That's a good way of putting it. I like that.
And that's my book. For anyone who can see the video on this, is called What the Heck is Self-Love? The idea is to create create so much love for yourself in your life that even when you experience the worst thing that can ever happen to a parent anyway, you're not going to. I chose to grieve with love, not with suffering. And
so going
anyways,
to that,
I said a mouthful there.
No, but I love it. And I have so much I want to talk to you about, but go into that in a little more detail, if you don't mind, about what that really means when you say you grieved with love. Like,
sure.
What is that?
So I was at my son Connor, and if anyone can see the pictures, he's the one on top there. I'm at his funeral and I'm giving the eulogy. And I paused in a moment. I said, I looked to his friends, family, my friends. I looked at everyone. I said, everyone, I'm going to make a choice in this moment. I could grieve through suffering. Suffering looks like drinking alcohol. Suffering looks like drugs. Suffering is choosing to allow depression to take you down that river and for a long period of time. And right. I say it's a choice because I made another choice. The other choice was I'm going to choose the river of love. Now, what does that look like? Well, first it started with acceptance of everything. And I don't mean the acceptance of just seeing your lifeless child. I mean, because there was a level of like reality check right there, but the acceptance that he's on a different path right now. So I chose to view it from a spiritual perspective. And the other thing is, and I know this for anyone who's passed away, they do not want any of their loved ones to ever suffer.
Sure.
They don't. So if I actually choosing love is to say, I'm going to do what he wants me to do. to live my life to the fullest, to be an advocate for love, an advocate for humanity, as my shirt says, humankind be both, right?
I love that. Yeah.
Like that inspiration, he was guiding me along the way. And that's what just a simple example of love. But it's the recognition that I start with loving myself and then loving everyone else. And love is a choice. It is a choice. It takes a lot of courage to love in many cases, but it's still a choice.
And to love the right way, that's a whole nother conversation.
Because many people love from the premise of, if I'll give to get, I'll give to get, I'll give to get. In fact, most people operate from that way.
Right.
Because, and I'm not a religious person, but I operate like, okay, how would Jesus react? I mean, how would he respond? That's kind of my little tiny script in my head. He responds with love. At least that's my interpretation of him. I didn't know the guy. And I mean, for all I know, he never existed, but the concept of him exists. And so that's how I choose to operate. What would love do is a question I ask. In fact, my own podcast is called the What Would Love Do podcast, where we explore life, love, and the pursuit of inner peace through the eyes of love. How it's a question that I can't even answer. Love is such a unique, intangible experience for each individual. And so my invitation for everyone listening to this, and especially men who are listening to this, is explore what it means to love yourself. Explore what it means to genuinely love another human being. And I say, make that a daily practice.
But how do you do that? I mean, do you have some tangible tips to?
Sure. So
that
I have on my bulletin board, which you can't see, I have a mantra I say to myself: loving myself and everyone else, loving myself and everyone else. That's number one. Number two, I incorporate something called the Hawaiian Forgiveness Prayer. The Hawaiian Forgiveness Prayer. Now, everyone, if you're listening to this podcast, put a pause, go to Google, write it down, and then Google it later. It's known as the Ho'oponopono.
And it goes
that. Like, huh?
Spell that.
Yeah, fucking good luck. For me anyway. So the Hawaiian forgiveness means forgiving love. Forgiving love. So the prayer is very simple. It's 9 words. I love you. I'm sorry. Please forgive me. Thank you. I love you. I'm sorry. Please forgive me. Thank you. I love you. I'm sorry. Please forgive me. Thank you. This is like a multivitamin for me. I say it in the morning. I say it before I go to bed. I say it whenever I feel anxiety. It's like giving myself an injection of love.
Okay.
So I start with a mantra every morning. I'm loving myself and everyone else. Sometimes I say it 100 times, just like an affirmation to reinforce it.
Right.
And then whenever I feel anxiety, upset, nervousness, I do this. Now, this isn't going to heal the traumatic events that might happen in your day, but it can be a pattern interrupt. And if you do it over and 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 over, and I keep doing it, right? You'll begin to shift. Because like anything, most people operate like this, Jason. They want to improve themselves. So they go to their backyard, they take a little apple seed, they plant it in the ground, they water it, and they wake up the next morning going, where the fuck's my tree? Well,
it's like me and grass.
Yeah, but grass at least quick, bamboo grows. Well, from what I understand, it takes 5 years for bamboo to actually break the ground, and then it takes 5 weeks for it to grow 50 feet.
Oh, is that right? How? Wow.
I heard that. So anyone who's listening to this, do me a favor and Google it and search it and write a comment.
Yeah,
below
let us know
if that's true. Let us know, but it's the same principle. You have to germinate something with a lot of practice. And we here in the United States are sucking on the nipple of victim consciousness and this disposable, I just expect everything to happen for me like that.
Well, that instant gratification.
Yeah.
We are consumed.
And we have notifications and buttons and things that shift that. And for anything to shift, it takes time. And get over yourself. It's okay that it takes time. It's okay.
But what do you say to the people? And because I've come across this so many times, and it's so frustrating for us as a coach, which I'm sure you've dealt with this too. People who feel, and they might not even know it about themselves, but you see it really quick. They just can't be alone, right? They always have to be in a relationship of some sort. They cannot be by themselves, because what happens when you're by yourself? You reflect and you start to look inward, and it gets scary and it's hard. So, have you dealt with those people?
Sure.
But what do you?
Kind of sucks for them.
Yeah. So what do you say to them?
So here's the thing. Self-discipline is a choice. Again, you have a choice. I always think of the line in the movie Shawshank Redemption.
Good one.
And there's a line that says, "Get busy living or get busy dying." There's a really simple barometer. If you're happy and you know it, clap your hands. If you're happy, but if you're miserable, then something needs to change. And so if you're codependent, which that's what you're really talking about, people that have codependency, as I said before, it takes that unraveling of the tapestry and then reintegrating who you are as a human being. I'm a big proponent of men and women alike taking a good 1 or 2 years off from any real significant searching for
1 or 2 years. Oh my God.
Yeah. Well, and by the way, I moved out of the house, and the next day I was online dating. And for the next 10 years, I was operating from that premise. I did end a significant relationship 3 years ago. And for the last 3 years, I've been working on myself. Now, part of this is because I went through the loss of my mom, I lost my dad, my son. So I lost half of my family in 1 year.
Oh my God.
So I went through incredible chaos. Most people don't need to go through that to experience what I experienced, but I took time to work on myself. Was it a choice, or just did it happen? Yeah, I felt like it just happened.
I don't know about that, right? I mean, it sounds like you're pretty intentional.
I think subconsciously, I think my higher self, spiritual self, has been sabotaging any opportunity. But you see, I don't need to get laid to feel good about myself anymore. Now, back in the day, yeah, I used to pick up chicks, feel their energy, get off on it, and then be on to the next one, the next one, the next one. Because and this is why I coach women to spot the guys like I used to be. It's interesting. I also now study a variety of works of Esther Perel, Amir Levine, Harvell Hendricks, John Gottman. The list goes on and on. Esther Perel talks about something called stable ambiguity. And this is where most people are experiencing this type of relationship. And I'm going to paraphrase it the way I interpret her work.
Okay.
Stable ambiguity is basically getting companionship, connection, and sex without much effort other than achieving those three things. There's not much greater effort to build a co-creative partnership.
Nothing deep there, right?
Yeah. And so men and women alike are experiencing this. I call it the rise of casual relationships. I'd say 80% of relationships are experiencing this. This is why women call me all day long and saying, "Jonathan, I'm in a relationship. I don't know what to do." Now, part of the issue for women, and for any women that are listening to this, I'm going to share this. I get calls all the time. "Jonathan, I'm in a relationship. It's not going anywhere. I want more commitment." I'm like, "Great. What does that look like for you?"
Right.
"But Jonathan, I just want more commitment." I'm like, "Great. What does that look like for you?" "But Jonathan, I just need more commitment from him." I'm like, "Great. What does that look like for you?" So we are dealing with a population that is rather clueless on the mechanics of a healthy, happy relationship. And you're a divorce attorney, you're a former divorce attorney.
That's correct.
One of the things I did was I studied what causes most divorces. And when you can look backward and connect the dots of what causes divorces, you can actually understand the mechanics of what it takes to create a healthy, happy relationship. And this is why I ask every one of my clients to purchase this book called 8 Dates by Dr. John Gottman. This book is a great vehicle to create awareness around the mechanics of a relationship. See, you and I and everybody else out there, we get married under this premise of, I'm a baby boomer, tail end of a baby boom. I was told to go to college, get a job, meet a girl, get married, buy a house, start a family. That was the blueprint.
That's the recipe, yeah.
That's the recipe. I had
The
no
American
idea
dream.
how to make it work. That was just what I was told. Now I'm divorced. Fucking deer in the headlights, because we don't know what the recipe is. And we never learned how to be in a healthy relationship to begin with.
Well, that's a big part of it, yeah.
So when I talk to my female clients, look, if you want that penis into the vagina, if you want to let that penis into the vagina, then you guys should be both reading this book together. Please.
Well, that's not going to happen.
Please. You know what? Here's the deal. The guy who's into you for the woman, he'll do it. The guy who's not into you goes, oh, I don't do that kind of shit. And you quickly determine if it's worth investing. Because if a guy doesn't have balls to do this work, then he's not going to have the balls to really be in relationship with at least at that moment in time.
But how quick into the relationship do you present the book?
So, you know what? Here's the thing. If you've got balls, ladies, and I don't mean that in any crass way, but if you have confidence within yourself, if you have your sovereignty, your self-love, your self-worth, self-esteem, you could just say, hey, this is part of my dating practice. If you want to explore a relationship with me, this is what I require. Now, 99 out of 100 dating coaches will tell you that's ridiculous, okay? But you know what? 99 out of 100 people going on first dates never see a second date. And of those ones that see a second date, 97 out of 100 barely see a third date. So what do you have to lose by being more demonstrative, being more effusive, being more? Now, here's the thing. Are you going to
separate you from the bunch? That's for sure.
Now, let me be honest. You're not going to do this on the first, second, or third date, but you're going to want to do this before you become intimate or shortly after being intimate. And that's the real. I'm saying a lot of this tongue in cheek, but you can tell, Jason, this is my style. I don't put up with bullshit style. And when a woman operates from that premise, because my mom, that's a picture of my mom and dad. My father, a commander of a destroyer in World War II. He had hundreds of men under his command, and really the masculine of alpha males. My mom ran that relationship because she had the balls to say it's my way or the highway. And with class, okay? By the way, first chapter in my book, Speak Your Truth, Do It with Kindness. But I want to encourage people to step into their empowerment. We do not have to give our power away to another human being to feel good. And you don't need someone to love you for you to feel good about yourself.
So let's talk about, because
I'm sorry, I get on to rants, Jason.
No, listen,
myself.
Right before the show, we're like, oh, we're going to keep this to half an hour. No, well, I'll have to have you on again, but because we're running out of time, I want to, because this is all great stuff. I mean, seriously. And I think people are going to just love listening to you, and then watch the video. People, it's not me, but for him.
Then come to my YouTube channel and my podcast.
Yeah, we're going to put all this in the links. You're going to have everything.
Okay.
But what would be, because before you can meet somebody else, right, you got to do you. At least that's my perspective. You got to understand what a healthy relationship is for you and what you want.
Yes.
So, do you have some quick tips for people to do that, to figure that out? What can they start with? Techniques, anything.
So I'm going to share, from a dating perspective, I'll use the dating perspective. Well, I'm going to give you two examples. So first, we're going to talk about sexual exclusivity and then a relationship. So for my clients, I always say, if you're going to choose to be intimate with a man, because monogamy is the first level of commitment. It's the first level. Right. Are you going to, is it the sex between us just between the two of us? So here's how you would frame it. You'd say, hey, Jason, I'm enjoying our time together. By the way, I'm doing this on the cuff here, but if it gets to a place of sexuality, you say, hey, I just need you to know something about me. When I'm intimate with a man, and it's regular. I'm monogamous, and then I'm exclusive, meaning I'm not going to be out searching for other men if I begin a sexual relationship with. How do you operate? So you simply share how you operate. And you're not saying I expect exclusivity or monogamy. You're just sharing how you operate, which is a lot kinder, gentler way to have the conversation. That's number one.
Okay, I like that.
As far as what I'm looking for in a relationship, I'll share what I say, and then I'll let this be the fodder for anyone to get some clarity. I say, I'm looking for a relationship that begins like this. We spend 3 or 4 days and nights a week together, doing shared activities, hobbies, mutual interests, spending time with family and friends, maybe traveling, becoming teamwork, helping each other in our own professional endeavors and in our home life as a team that eventually leads to either moving in together or getting married. That's how I operate. How do you operate? Now, most guys, deer in the headlights because they don't have an answer. But you know what? You set your standard and then see how they show up, because it actually creates an opportunity for someone to fucking think about this shit. We got people running around with their heads cut off with no clue of what a relationship looks like for them. So ladies, you are in charge of your relationship destiny. For the women listening, guys, you are too. Know what the heck you want and just express it.
And again, we're talking about the, we're mostly divorced crowd, older, right? We're not talking about 20.
You can talk about, by the way, interesting enough, 20 and 30-year-olds love my content. This is what anyone that goes through my private coaching program all say the same thing. After my 5-week boot camp, they go, God, why didn't I learn this? Why didn't I learn this in school? Why didn't my parents teach me this? I wished I learned this 10 years ago. 20 and 30-year-old women love my work because it sets them up for greater chance for success. It's a lot harder for the 50 and 60-year-old clients I work with.
Right, but you would think at the 50 and 60-year-old, or mid-40s, they are ready and looking for something different and not running around like a chicken with their head cut off like they did.
No, they're the ones worse off because they have something happening called midlife crisis.
Yeah. And they're in a rush.
And
they're in a rush, right?
Well, there's a sense of urgency, not because the road in front of them is shorter, but there's an interesting midlife crisis is where the blueprint in your life collides with your reality. So you're a clusterfuck, emotionally speaking. A lot of people
you don't even know me.
No, I'm not. No, I'm not. Yes, you are. Okay. What'd you say?
I said you don't even know me.
Yeah, I don't have to know you. I know. Well, here's the thing, Jason. I know the number one emotional health issue for everybody, most everybody, I'll be kind and say most everybody, is I'm not good enough, I'm not lovable, and I'm not likable. Deep down, our core little kid inside of us feels that way. And nothing triggers that more than when you start interacting in a romantic sense with another human being. That triggers all our shit, okay? And the more wounded you were as a child, the more it's going to surface. And thankfully, relationships are a great incubator to heal that if you have the tools. So 8 dates, getting the love you want, what the heck is self-love anyway, just to name a few. Because there are books out there that can help heal you from the inside out. And then when you're in a relationship, you get tested with it.
Right.
And that's all where the juicy, fun, delicious parts of life.
You can read about all the techniques you want, but you got to start practicing them.
Exactly. And you can be a victor, you can be a victim, or you can be a victor. You can get busy living or get busy dying.
I love it.
That's my invitation for people.
No, Jonathan, thank you so much. Like I said, man, I'm going to have you on again and jam about some other things because there's so much to talk about and I feel like so little time, right?
My pleasure. I get off on this shit. So
no, and it's contagious, right? So that's why I love it too. And I think it was at least we're tipping the iceberg to help people and get them thinking. That's what this is all about for me. Getting them thinking and like you said, doing something to interrupt their normal routine because whatever it is, it's not working. And so I love that whole bag of stuff. Where can people find you?
Okay, so I think you mentioned you're going to have some links, but my name is Jonathan Asley. You can find me on YouTube. You can find me on my podcast, the What Would Love Do podcast. I've got a website, jonathanasley.com. I'm on all social medias, but I don't, like it's just so much noise out there. YouTube and the podcast is where most people can find me.
I'm the same way. It's just too much for me.
Yeah.
I'm exhausted just saying Twitter, Facebook.
Yeah.
But
especially what's happening in the news these days, but that's another conversation.
Oh, that's a whole nother podcast.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for being a guest on the show, and I look forward to having you on again.
My pleasure, Jason. Thank you so much.